Didn't they talk about you cold when you were headed for the skies? But you were young and bold, and baby, didn't that change with a wink of your eye? Now no one's talking about those crazy days gone by. No one talks about the times you cried. All us Van Halen fans recognize those words as the opening lyrics to Little Dreamer, a song that is musically and lyrically unlike anything the band would go on to write or record. The song possesses a coolness, a swagger, and a sexy mystique that really makes it singular and unique in the Van Halen repertory. The man who wrote and sang those lyrics is Van Halen singer David Lee Roth, and like many fans, I assumed he was singing about a girl who picked herself up by the bootstraps. But as time passed and I learned more about Roth, I began to realize Little Dreamer isn't about a girl at all. To the contrary, Little Dreamer is Roth's loving and compassionate victory song to himself. Now, the conventional wisdom states that Roth's lyrics were fun, bad boy nonsense, little more than an excuse to throw a keg party. I don't agree with that assessment. I think many of Roth's lyrics ingeniously cloak deeper personal meanings, or, as Roth himself sings on Mean Street, what you think is nothing might be something after all. Throughout Van Halen's 40-year existence, much was said about the band, and the vast majority of the attention went to examining the tone and technique of the quartet's trailblazing guitar player, Eddie Van Halen. In this video, we're going to take a magnifying glass to Van Halen's other resident genius. We're going to explore David Lee Roth's lyrics and see what we might be able to glean about the life of this rock legend. Now, before we begin, I want to remind everyone that the views expressed here are complete and total speculation. However, we will use information collected from books, interviews, and other media to support our theories. On this premiere installment of Digital Graffiti, Little Dreamer, the lyrics of David Lee Roth. Swampscott, Massachusetts, circa 1960. A 6-year-old David Lee Roth is romping around with some other kids when suddenly things take an ugly turn. Roth would write about the incident in his 1997 memoir, Crazy from the Heat. I remember playing chase in the schoolyard. I fell down and tore off the whole side of my face. It was common kid shit. You know, everybody made fun. But I did a non-common kid thing. I signed everybody off. I walked out onto the front porch and I built a little boat out of the top of a picket fence and used pencils and paper to make the sails. I put it right on the edge of the stairway and I said, "This is me," and I kicked it off into the street, and I never affiliated with a group of steady friends again in my life. The Swampscott incident is telling. We all know kids can be tremendously cruel, and most of us suffer ridicule at some point during our childhood. But for 6-year-old David Lee Roth, that schoolyard incident was a lesson in inhumanity. He learned just how callous human beings can be, and he never ever forgot it. This life-changing moment in Roth's life at age 6 evokes a quote attributed to Aristotle, the legendary Greek philosopher who famously said, "Give me a child until he is 7, and I will show you the man." When Roth swore off affiliating with groups at age 6, he may have hardwired himself to be suspicious and untrusting of the mob, those motley throngs of seemingly decent individuals who can turn into savages when they gather as a group. The same people who one minute are sharing playtime with you, the next minute laughing as you lay bleeding. Is it any wonder that Roth would grow up to write a song skeptically titled "Ain't Talking About Love"? The schoolyard incident ranks among many significant slights Roth would suffer. As he began to pursue his dreams of stardom, friends made fun of him. And while there's rarely a good reason for ridiculing somebody, Roth may have unwittingly brought some of the mockery on himself. That's because, by all accounts, he lacked even the most basic singing skill when he started out on his quest for fame. The 2 times he auditioned for the Van Halen brothers, he was decisively rejected. As Eddie recalled in the 1995 Rolling Stone magazine interview, Roth performed a couple of tunes for the brothers. "It was terrible," Eddie said. He couldn't sing. Roth's vocal shortcomings weren't lost on his schoolmates and friends. In his 2015 book, Van Halen Rising, author Greg Renoff quotes a childhood acquaintance of Roth's. "We used to laugh at him," the acquaintance said. "You're never going to be a rock star." Now, as if all these insults weren't enough, Roth's parents were at their wits' end. As Roth told Joe Rogan during a 2021 interview, his mother threw him out of the house for the crime of being, quote, a troublesome kid. Here we see one of the earliest examples of Roth weaving the details of his life into his lyrics, recounting the story of his banishment from home on the tune DOA from Van Halen 2. Broken down and dirty, dressed in rags, from the day my mama told me, boy, you pack your bags. The schoolyard incident, the initial rejection of the Van Halen brothers, the ridicule of friends, getting kicked out of the house. Roth took it all personally. Try as he might to build a music career, it seemed that he was doing little more than spinning his wheels, beating his head against a wall. He would later express his pain on a ballad from Van Halen's Women and Children First album entitled In a Simple Rhyme. Well, back in the past, when I was treated so coldly, my love life was a damn disgrace. Needed someone to love and hold me. And that was one of the reasons that I was out of place. Now, you'll pardon my hammy theatrical delivery, but I'm using over-the-top melodrama to make a point. Roth's vocal performance on In a Simple Rhyme is typically pumped up and high-spirited, but when his lyrics are delivered in a poetic spoken-word fashion, the surprising vulnerability of his words shine through, evoking all that angst and frustration he felt throughout his youth. Now, amazingly, at some point, Roth would discover a piece of art that reflected his despair. It's a painting created in 1953, just months before the singer was born. The work in question is called The Maze, and it was created by the late Canadian artist William Chronicling. It features a dissected skull with compartments representing Chronicling's memories of his tortured childhood, a childhood that in some ways bore similarities to Roth's. In one compartment of Chronicling's masterpiece, we see children pointing and laughing while a boy is getting a beatdown, a scene that evokes Roth's Massachusetts schoolyard incident. In another compartment, we see Chronicling being kicked out of his house, a scenario that echoes Roth's own banishment. Yet another memory shows a boy butting his head against a wall, just like Roth must have felt as he experienced setback after setback. When Roth came across The Maze, he must have felt a little less alone in the world. In fact, he identified so strongly with the painting that he would employ it as the cover art for Van Halen's hard-hitting 1981 album, Fair Warning. Now, just as it was looking as if Roth would never realize his dreams of rock stardom, fate intervened. Roth was in possession of a state-of-the-art public address system that he rented out to the Van Halen brothers. As Eddie recalled in an interview, "We were renting his PA for $35 and getting $50 for the gigs, so it was cheaper to get him in the band." And just like that, David Lee Roth, an aspiring rock star who, at the time, possessed more grit and more determination than actual singing skill, stole his way into Mammoth, as Van Halen was known before it would change its name. Years later, a triumphant Roth would describe his life on Runnin' with the Devil, opening track from Van Halen's now legendary 1978 debut album. "I live my life like there's no tomorrow, and all I've got I had to steal. At least I don't need to beg or borrow. Yes, I'm living at a pace that kills." In just 4 lyrical bars, Roth introduces himself to the world with autobiographical words that capture his life's perspective up to that point. In his determined pursuit of rock stardom, Roth was living like there was no tomorrow, at a pace so intense it quote-unquote kills. Now, as for "at least I don't need to beg or borrow," I believe that can be interpreted as a proud declaration of independence, perhaps Roth winking at the mother who once expelled him from home. This is Roth crowing, "See, Mom, I don't need any handouts. I'm out here making it on my own." When we take all this into consideration, we begin to see that Runnin' with the Devil is more than just a rock anthem. It's the musical calling card for a singer who fought childhood cruelty, ridicule, crushing rejection, and parental pressure on his way to becoming one of the most influential rock singers of all time. But just how did Roth accomplish this incredible feat? What type of thinking must he have employed to keep plugging away even when it seemed the entire world was betting against him? Well, there's evidence that Roth used the indignities he suffered to motivate himself. Towards his goal of becoming a world-renowned rock star, he would identify as a loner with a me-against-the-world attitude. He would transform himself into a self-styled modern American cowboy. During Roth's tenure with Van Halen, we see how consistently he employed cowboy imagery to create his own legend. He was born in the mid-1950s, a time when westerns featuring John Wayne and Gary Cooper ruled the movie theaters. I think it's safe to conjecture that Roth was mesmerized by these movies and cowboy culture in general. During Van Halen's heyday, Roth often performed in western-style chaps, fringed pants, and other western garb. He even persuaded the Van Halen brothers to record an a cappella version of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans' country and western classic Happy Trails for the Diver Down album. Now, a big part of Wild West iconography is the myth of the frontiersman, a lone wolf, romantically unattached, beholden to no one. I think this image really appealed to Roth, considering his vow as a child to never closely associate with people. But I think Roth's skepticism goes deeper than just groups of friends. It's possible that he also learned to be suspicious of romantic relationships and their tendency to tie people down and make them emotionally indebted. With its emphasis on absolute freedom, it's no wonder Roth finds cowboy culture so appealing. We can hear his appropriation of Western culture on Hang 'Em High, the supercharged second track off Diver Down. Titled after a 1968 Clint Eastwood Western, Hang 'Em High finds Roth depicting himself as the rock and roll equivalent of a frontier maverick. Leather across his thighs, blasting out the night. His cap hides his eyes, one eye on the road, price upon his head, one ear to the ground. He's listening to the dead. Now, it should be eminently obvious that leather across his thighs is a reference to the Western wear Roth often wore on stage. As for the one ear to the ground line, I believe this is a reference to Roth's penchant for subtly introducing a broad range of musical and even aesthetic influences to Van Halen, from the band's club-playing years right up to its arena-playing heyday. It's been documented that Roth convinced the once wary Van Halen brothers to play songs by black artists like James Brown, Wilson Pickett, the Isley Brothers, and more. But Roth also brought other influences into the band. Everything from the art of William Kurelic and the photography of Helmut Newton to the cowboy songs of Roy Rogers, the disco funk of acts like Chic and the Ohio Players, and even the punk rock of Van Halen's LA club rivals. It was Roth's ear to the ground that gives classic Van Halen much of its enduring vitality and its richness. We're treated to more Western imagery on the track DOA. Here, Roth employs cowboy symbolism to celebrate the band's backyard party days in Pasadena, when upset neighbors would call the cops on the band. We were broke and hungry on a summer day. They sent the sheriff down to try to drive us away. On the song's chorus, Roth continues with the desperado symbolism, proudly declaring both his single status and his outlaw reputation. And I'm alone, and I'm on the highway, wanted, dead or alive. Now note the I'm alone assertion. This is a recurring theme in Roth's lyrics. From the very beginning of his recording career, he defiantly declared his individualism. On Runnin' with the Devil, he establishes himself as the lonesome cowboy. Got no love you'd call real. Got nobody waiting at home. Now let's revisit Hang 'Em High once more. We hear Roth repeatedly and gleefully describe his no-baggage lifestyle. Alone to himself, he's laughing up his sleeve. Travels light, without a pack, without love. He comes from nowhere, returns on his own. Of all the songs from the DLR era, Hang 'Em High might be the most illustrative of all. A lifelong bachelor, Roth has never married or sired any children. At least none that we know of. Judging from appearances, he's made good on his vow at 6 years old to never affiliate in groups, or to get too comfortable with individuals for that matter. If If you consider all the evidence presented here, you just may agree there is a high probability that Little Dreamer is Roth's musical victory lap, one of several songs where he rebukes the many doubters who, to paraphrase, talked about him cold when he was headed for the skies. But the story doesn't end there. Even as he became more and more famous, Roth's resentment towards his early detractors didn't dissipate quickly. Over the course of his career with Van Halen, he would express his indignation in a really curious way. He would exact lyrical revenge. Oh! In an interview with Musician magazine, David Lee Roth described the emotions behind his lyrics. He confessed that his career and his music were, and I'm quoting here, primarily motivated by fear and revenge. My songs, every time we go out and play, yeah, I'm having a great time, but I'm also dancing somebody else into the dirt. Revenge. The American Heritage Dictionary defines it as to inflict punishment in return for injury or insult. When many of us hear the word revenge, we think of an aggrieved person performing a cruel, humiliating joke on an adversary, or maybe somebody evening the score by inflicting bodily injury or worse. These examples represent the extreme end. Others view revenge in more subdued terms, such as using your indignation and your pain as motivation to succeed and to be happy, a mindset that's encapsulated in that old saying, living well is the best revenge. Judging from his lyrics, it's the latter, more subtle form of revenge David Lee Roth prefers. Throughout his career with Van Halen, Roth constantly meted out lyrical vengeance on his enemies, often disguising his rap and subtle braggadocio. Little Dreamer is a great example of this. The song is basically Roth throwing his newfound fame in the face of all the people who told him he'd never become a rock star. The people who, figuratively speaking, voted him least likely to succeed, as he sings in the song. Roth is quoted as saying the greatest strength is a quiet defiance, and he has spent his career living up to that philosophy, expressing his resentment passively-aggressively through his lyrics. We see evidence of Roth's quiet defiance on the track Hang 'Em High. The song's title alone suggests that Roth is sentencing his critics to the noose, a notion that's reinforced in the song's lyric. First come, first served. He's serving it back. This lyric illustrates Roth's eye for an eye philosophy. In other words, mess with me, I'm gonna serve a mess right back to you. But Hang 'Em High is just one example of Roth's retributive writing style. Without mentioning names or offering too many obvious clues, Roth continually rubs his critics' noses in the dirt, just as he does on Light Up the Sky, where he sings about Van Halen's 1970s Los Angeles club rivals, the vast majority of whom lack the grit and the never say die perseverance to succeed. Seems the old folks who come up short were the pretty little kids who didn't want it. But perhaps the most subtle way that Roth meted out lyrical vengeance was through taunting self-promotion. This is glaringly evident on Van Halen's debut album, where Roth takes modesty to stratospheric new levels. Take, for example, Atomic Punk, where he boasts about himself with hip-hop style bravado. On every wall and place my fearsome name is heard. Just look around. My fearsome name. Notice how Roth employs a variant of the word fear to crow about his freshly minted fame, just as he did on Little Dreamer, where he sings, "Weren't they amazed when you were feared at last?" On Van Halen 1's closing tune, On Fire, we hear more taunting and bragging. Turn your radios on. I'll be right there. Turn me up real loud. I'm in your ears. Then there's this couplet from I'm the One, where Roth gloats. Look at all these little kids taking care of the music biz. Don't their business take good care of me? These lyrics all share one thing in common. They all feature Roth serving it back to the folks who never took him seriously. He's saying, remember me, the guy you said would never be a rock star? Look at me now. I'm in your headphones. I'm on your radio. My name, likeness, and lyrics are in media and even on walls. Why hell, I'm so hot, I'm on fire. It's been said that revenge is a dish best served cold. I think David Lee Roth enjoyed serving his revenge cold and veiled. So veiled, in fact, that most of his targets probably never realized they were even being indicted in the first place. All of which brings us to our most dramatic case in point.
I'll tell you all about it.
Of all the songs from the Van Halen DLR era, few are as iconic as Unchained. This track from Fair Warning is not only notable for its uniquely structured guitar melody, but also for its sneering, defiant lyrics. On the Roth Revenge scale, Unchained is matched only by Little Dreamer and Hang 'Em High for sheer snarling cattiness. On Unchained, Roth appears to call out an unspecified female who failed to support his rock star aspirations. Now, the woman in question could be an old girlfriend, or maybe even a female rock critic, but I think it's possible, and I emphasize possible here, that the mystery woman on Unchained might actually be Roth's own mom. As noted previously, Roth admitted to Joe Rogan that his mother threw him out of the house when he was a teenager for being a troublesome kid. As Roth himself explained in his memoir, not only was he hanging out with drug dealers and other ne'er-do-wells during his teen years, he was also an aspiring singer with more chutzpah than actual innate musical ability. Roth recalled his struggle to attain formal musical knowledge. We were in junior college, theory and orchestration, music theory, harmonic structure, etc. I learned a tremendous amount, but was flunking out dually. Could it be that Roth's mother didn't think a music career was the wisest choice for a child who initially demonstrated little natural singing ability? It's certainly something to consider. Now, back to Unchained. On the track's opening verse, Roth reminds the aforementioned mystery woman that she didn't support his rock star aspirations. You said I cannot get there from here, and I don't care where I'm going. So, not only did the mystery woman not believe that Roth could be a famous singer, it appears she also thought Roth didn't care where his life was headed, that he was content to be a hard-partying slacker. Roth responds defiantly to this notion. Here's to your thin red line. I'm stepping over. Next comes the song's pre-chorus, where Roth turns the tables on the mystery woman, boasting about his fame and rubbing the woman's nose in the dirt. Thought you'd never miss me till I got a Fat City address. Non-stop talker, what a rocker, blue-eyed murder, and a size 5 dress. Now we can only wager that the Fat City address line represents Roth exalting the fact that he was now rich, famous, and living the good life. Not to be outdone, the mystery woman responds by mocking Dave's blabbermouth propensity for non-stop talking. Dave's counter-response is extremely revealing. He describes the mystery woman as blue-eyed murder. Now, murder is a strong word, and I think Roth is trying to convey just how the mystery woman tried to kill his dreams, which again shows us just how personally he took the lack of support he received early on. Next up, we have the song's iconic chorus, where Roth gets semi-philosophical. Change. Nothing stays the same. Unchained. You hit the ground running. In the first line, I believe Roth is alluding to the fact that he may have started out as a tone-deaf screecher, but nothing stays the same. Through hard work and laser focus, Roth became a much improved singer and entertainer. And not only did Roth's musical abilities change, the power dynamic between him and the mystery woman also underwent a transformation. Though he might have been beholden to the mystery woman during those lean club years in Pasadena, Van Halen's global success placed Roth firmly and unambiguously in command of his life. Unchained finds the singer relishing this delectable reversal of fortune. In fact, later on in the song, Roth makes clear that he's no longer willing to take any more condescending negativity from the mystery woman. I don't ask for permission. This is my chance to fly. Maybe enough ain't enough for you, but it's my turn to drive. Now, turning our attention back to the chorus, where Roth sings, Unchained, you hit the ground running. This is classic motivational Roth, him stating that you have to unchain yourself from your own doubts and inhibitions, that you have to hit the ground running if you ever hope to succeed. Roth would employ this same philosophy on Van Halen's biggest ever hit, Jump. Just as he did on Little Dreamer, Jump finds Roth engaging in a friendly musical dialogue with himself. Only on Jump, he's got his back against the record machine, trying to muster the courage to approach a girl. Suddenly, he's locked in a classic devil versus angel conversation between his confident self and his doubting, insecure self. Confident Dave. Hey you, insecure Dave. Who said that? Confident Dave. Baby, how you been? You say you don't know, you won't know until you begin. In other words, you don't know if that girl is going to accept your invitation to dance unless you ask her. So might as well take the risk and hit the ground running, or jump, as the case may be. But what if the girl is playing hard to get? What if you got to work a little for her affection? Well, it turns out Roth has an answer for that question. In some Roth revenge songs, a recurring theme is faith and commitment, that essential belief that you can accomplish whatever it is you set out to do. We hear evidence of this Rothian philosophy in Ain't Talking About Love, where he stares into an imaginary abyss. I've been to the edge, and there I stood and looked down. You know, I lost a lot of friends there, baby. I got no time to mess around. This is Roth stating that self-doubt was never an option for him. He took an all-or-nothing approach to life that eventually helped him overcome tremendous odds. As for Roth's allusions to standing on an edge and losing friends, this is symbolic of him staring into the abyss that swallowed most of his club rivals. This is Roth vengefully stating, "My competitors fell off the cliff into obscurity. I'm the last man standing." Later in the song, we hear Roth sing about the importance of sacrifice and mental toughness. So if you want it, gotta bleed for it. I think this could be Roth saying that his detractors and rivals didn't quite have the sacrificing mindset and stick-to-itiveness required to advance to the next level in the rock and roll sweepstakes. In Roth's mind, if those naysayers and competitors had really wanted it, if they really had wanted it, they would have sacrificed the blood, sweat, and tears required to nab a major label recording contract. And this same faith and commitment applies to everything in life. For example, let's return to the scenario Roth paints on Jump, where he's sitting against a record machine contemplating approaching a girl. Imagine for a second that's you. If you really want that girl, maybe you're going to have to go beyond a mere invitation and sweet talk her a little before she accepts. And should that dance evolve into a serious relationship, you're certainly going to have to bleed for it. Figuratively speaking, of course. Roth and his bandmates certainly did their share of bleeding. Former Van Halen associates like Noel Monk and producer Ted Templeman attest to how much the band sacrificed in the early days of their professional recording career, enduring poverty, withstanding enormous pressure from their parents, playing hundreds of low-paying gigs, driving around in beat-up cars and vans, all this and more before becoming rock legends. Roth and his bandmates bled for it. As I've tried to illustrate in this video, David Lee Roth's lyrics are much more personal and meaningful than many would imagine. The self-styled little dreamer addressed his childhood traumas and insecurities, ultimately earning the respect and acclaim he craved through hard work and invincible self-belief. It's been almost 45 years since Roth emerged on the global music scene, yet it doesn't appear that he's changed all that much. In 2021, at age 67, he released a solo single entitled Giddy Up, a Western-themed tune that shows he's still fascinated by the cowboy mythology of his 1950s youth. Roth recently announced his retirement, and the disclosure was cause for reflection. That's because Roth seemed to contemplate his retirement decades ago in a song, only this time it was a tune he didn't write the lyrics to. The year was 1985, and the song was a medley entitled Just a Gigolo, I Ain't Got Nobody, popularized by jazz singer Louis Prima in 1956. Just a Gigolo is the story of a Romeo pondering a bittersweet future. It's both curious and telling that Roth would pick this song to help launch his solo career. Like many of Roth's own original lyrics, Just a Gigolo is at once individualistic, philosophical, and just a little self-deprecating. Reading the lyrics now, I can't help but be impressed with how Roth, at the peak of his career, related to Just a Gigolo's good-humored perspective on the fleeting nature of youth, life, and relationships. There will come a day when youth will pass away. What will they say about me? When the end comes, I know there was just a gigolo. Life goes on without me. Hey, it's Bruce from Digital Graffiti. If you enjoyed this installment, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon so you don't miss future episodes. If you want to help me continue making deep dive content like this, consider making a much appreciated donation. Info is in the box below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.